All right, thank you very much for staying with us here on The Full View. The chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, is to lay criminal charges with police against former President Jacob Zuma after his legal team's decision to walk out of the Commission last week. Zuma's legal team walked out of the Commission in Johannesburg in defiance of the summons it had issued against the former president after he failed in his bid to get Zondo to recuse himself from the hearing his testimony. Zondo's response comes as calls mount from civil society organizations for him to be dealt with decisively. Lawson Naidoo, the Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, joins me now live. A very good evening to you, Lawson. Thanks indeed for your time. So enlighten me here a bit. What offence did former President Jacob Zuma commit by walking out of the Commission last week while under summons?
Good evening, Christalda, and thank you very much. As the Deputy Chief Justice explained in his statement this morning, the Commission's Act, which provides for the issuing of a summons before a Judicial Commission of Inquiry, requires the person to be present and to answer questions. Now, Mr. Zuma had been issued with the summons from Monday to Friday of last week, and he took his leave without the authority or consent of the Deputy Chief Justice at lunchtime on Thursday. Yeah. And therefore his conduct amounts to a breach of the Commission's Act, and that entitles the Commission to lay a criminal charge against Mr. Zuma for failing to abide by the summons, and on conviction he is liable to either a fine or a period of imprisonment for up to 6 months, or a combination of the two. And that's the process that's now been put into action by the Deputy Chief Justice and by the Commission, the Secretary to the Commission.
With that out of the way and how this might seemingly proceed now, another issue that has been raised is that with the intention of the Zondo Commission to issue another summons for the former president to appear before it, what does this mean for the time frame of the sittings scheduled to end early next year?
Indeed. I think this is an indication that the Deputy Chief Justice is using every tool at his disposal to try and get the former president to come and testify before the Commission. We know that there have been 34 witnesses before the Commission who have implicated Mr. Zuma, and the Commission would like to get his version of events on that. If, however, they're unable to do so, as you say, the Commission is running a tight deadline in terms of it has to submit its report to the President by the end of March next year. Yeah. So there's little over 4 months to go. So they're giving Mr. Zuma every opportunity to come forward. But if he doesn't come forward and they're unable for whatever reason to get him to come and testify, I think this provides grounds for the Deputy Chief Justice to make adverse findings against Mr. Zuma in any event.
Yeah. The Commission also expecting to make an urgent application before the Constitutional Court to compel the former president to appear before it. What is that move expected to entail?
Well, we're not sure yet because obviously the application has not been launched as yet. Yeah. So we don't know the detail of the application, exactly what the remedy is. But it would appear to be that the Commission is going to approach the Constitutional Court to get the Constitutional Court to enforce the summons that is yet to be issued by the Commission for Mr. Zuma to appear at a future date, perhaps sometime in December or January. So that's the intention behind going directly to the Constitutional Court, to be armed with an order from that court to enforce the summons.
Lawson, I want to go back to these criminal charges being laid against the former president. Once these formal charges are then laid, we know what usually happens, but obviously in this instance, then law enforcement agencies, I guess, would then need to play their part.
Indeed, the complaint would be filed with the South African Police Service, and they would have to investigate the matter and then refer it to the NPA for prosecution. But I think it's significant that the Deputy Chief Justice, in making that statement this morning, pointed out that very little investigative work is required because the circumstances under which this criminal offence was committed was on plain view for all of South Africa to see. It was broadcast on television and in various other media forums. So there's very little investigative work for the police to do, except to note the fact that Mr. Zuma departed the Commission of Inquiry without the consent of the Deputy Chief Justice. I think that's plain to see. And we would therefore hope that the law enforcement agencies would be able to act speedily on this complaint.
Yeah. Lawson, just very quickly, we're running out of time. I mean, if we look holistically at what has taken place over the past week, the former president always indicating that he wanted to state his case. The last, what he brought over what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, in him saying that he wanted the Deputy Chief Justice to recuse himself, that being kicked out by Justice Raymond Zondo. Are these delaying tactics on the part of the former president from what we've witnessed over the past couple of weeks?
Well, I think it's clearly that's been the strategy of Mr. Zuma all along, and it's not just over the last couple of weeks. If we go back to when Mr. Zuma gave evidence in July of last year, remember he left the commission because he felt that the questioning of him was being unfair, that he was effectively being cross-examined, and therefore left the commission midway through his evidence last year. Yeah. So I think this is clearly a strategy by Mr. Zuma not to answer questions. And even when he's been asked to provide affidavits by the commission, which is again another issue the Deputy Chief Justice raised this morning, Mr. Zuma has failed to file those affidavits in response to very clear directives from the commission. So it's quite clear that Mr. Zuma has absolutely no intention of cooperating with the Commission of Inquiry.
Lawson Naidoo, the Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. All right, so coming up on the program as well, Roy Stocker from the National Credit Regulator cautions consumers to spend money wisely this Black Friday. That's if you're planned and budgeted for it, of course, and not taking into account, of course, not forgetting, in fact, the tough economic conditions that we're in.
All right, that coming up. In the meantime, 8 EFF supporters arrested during a protest in Brackenfell in Cape Town last Friday have